Welcome to EdTech Speaks, a podcast bringing guests together to share their expertise and advice on navigating business and education in a technology-driven world. From entrepreneurs to vendors, higher education to corporate leaders, we'll uncover their perspective regarding the latest trends and technologies impacting your career or business. Our podcast is made possible by Downing EdTech Consulting, where people and technology connect. Hosted by Cher Downing, an experienced executive spanning a higher education and corporate career with specific focus on the EdTech industry. Dr. Downing is also an international and national presenter, author, and regular media contributor. Now here is your host, EdTech strategist, Dr. Cher Downing.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to EdTech Speaks, an area where we talk about the intersection between business, education, and technology. I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Rachel B. Lee, who is with Standout Authority. And I'm more excited because I think she's really going to give you insight into what you're doing with your own personal brand, what you're doing with your company brand. For those of you in startups, what you're doing with your brand all across the board. So Rachel, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Wonderful. So let's just start out with the intersection of business and technology and education. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the intersection of business and technology at these days, it's almost one and the same, right? It's like every company, even if you're not producing a technology, you're running on technology, right? Like that's how business is done. And COVID has really accelerated with remote work and really so many businesses, brick and mortars going away. Obviously, different industries were impacted differently and different countries have different situations that everyone's going through. But business and technology are one in one practically in my mind. And then education to me is the fundamental, it's like the thread that needs to go through this transformation. You know, we're going through such massive digital transformation. I know that word is used a lot by big tech companies, you know, after working at Microsoft and, you know, working with all the major players, and I was at Gartner. I know that that's used a lot, but it really is a transformation. And not only is the education sector really evolving, I think about this when I have my two stepkids, right? And it's now they just get a school computer and it's a Chrome, right? Google's done really a phenomenal job in terms of selling into public education. So I think about that sort of impact, but then I also think about really the immense amount of education that is needed in the intersection of business and technology. So that's my little 2 cents on that. Now you want to know a little bit more about me.
A little bit more about you, because you're absolutely right. I mean, we've seen such change, even if people chose not to understand the intersection. The last 2-3 years have forced people, even in the most remote areas, to understand that. And I think you've done a job of taking all of your past experiences, recognizing where there are gapes and where people and companies are having issues, and formulated this new business, which I think people will be excited to hear about.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit of a background on me. I actually started my career at an agency, marketing agency. So I was working with CPG brands like Unilever and some of the brands like Axe and Suave, and decided to get my MBA, moved to Austin, got my MBA here at University of Texas McCombs School of Business. And that really allowed me to pivot into the technology industry. I was at Microsoft. So I landed at Microsoft and learned a lot more about B2B, right? About taking a product, scaling it, and then also the channel, because I specifically was working with the Microsoft Partner Network and all things marketing. And then I was at Gartner. I went to Gartner and I was a lead on a sub-brand called Software Advice, helping small businesses find the right software. So this whole world, something I've been exposed to for the last several years. And I decided to join forces with my husband, who founded Standout Authority actually in 2014. Joshua B. Lee. He's a veteran entrepreneur, 20 plus years, creating 16 different companies, but really focusing on standout authority the last few years, and even more so with me over the last year plus. I've only been owning this business with him and partnering a little over a year now with Josh, because we together really believe that we're in the human revolution. We think that in this era of humans, and it's not really an era, right? But like, that's how LinkedIn calls it, right? We're in the human era because of the pace of change, and technology and innovation, not to mention global events like pandemics and wars and everything happening that we've all experienced unlike any other time in our history, that humans and people are really more important than ever before. And that conversation and relationships are the most important way that we can build businesses and build opportunities that aren't just doing to build, but actually a purpose and can make this world a better place. And so at Standout Authority, our goal is to really create human conversations again online. And our power platform for doing that is on LinkedIn, because we work with heart-centered, incredible business leaders across industries. These are high-powered individuals, executives, whether they own their own business or work for a high-powered organization. And we believe in and support them in defining their personal brand, getting them attention, bringing people in, and then actually getting micro commitments, creating those relationships so that they don't just create clients or get money, they actually build advocacy. And so that is what we do at Standout Authority, whether we work with individuals one-on-one or we provide training and we help support people in becoming a standout authority.
And that is so important right now. I think years ago when LinkedIn started, everyone kind of said, well, that's the business professional space and I should have an account. And, I'll eventually find some people that kind of like the same things I do or the same business background. We did it more as a networking, just to have connectivity, but we didn't really use the power of LinkedIn. And then the pandemic hit and everyone was stuck somewhere. And suddenly all the face-to-face networking events went away. And suddenly the world opened up and you were buying goods and services and doing things with people all over the globe, and trying to figure out how to suddenly cold call someone halfway across the world because you didn't have a relationship with anyone. You didn't have even someone you could say, hey, can you introduce me? The way you would in a room setting. And so now being able to take that forward, and because now it's no longer being global, it's just being in business. We deal with people all over the world now. We do things with everyone, and we kind of have stopped thinking about us versus them. You're in this time zone, we're in this time zone. We're really more about just having successful business and supporting others. So the fact that you're looking at the relationship side is so very important right now, because we are really almost starving for that on the business side. I think we figured it out with products like Facebook and things like that for just keeping in contact with family and friends. But I think the business side, we really need that introduction, that handhold to move us through that.
Oh, yeah. And when it comes to marketing, and I am a brand marketing lady boss, like I have well over a decade of experience in doing every facet of marketing. It's not to say that there's Instagram, Facebook, SEO. There's many pieces of marketing that are highly effective and important based off of your goals and your business. Well, one thing we know for certain is that the people inside businesses and technology businesses, they're doing business on LinkedIn. They're not on Instagram checking reels and looking for some sort of business relationship to sell into. They're definitely not, they might be on Facebook to say hello to their mom and dad and their families, but they don't really want to have a business conversation. I'm speaking into EdTech and keeping my brain really focused on that. different, a little bit different when we're talking about, hey, I'm selling a shirt or there's a good or even a charity, right? But I think that just the dynamic is really shifting, and social media is only like 20 years old, And so, and LinkedIn is a product company. It's actually not a social media company. It's becoming more of that, but it's a product company.
Right.
And so I just, when I think about, hey, okay, if I'm a business, I'm a brand, and I'm doing my marketing efforts and I'm trying to get clients or get customers onto my product, where are they going to be? And it's really smart for us to be thinking about LinkedIn as one of those core places to deliver that, along with, the additional marketing efforts that you have going on, especially when we know going to in-person events just starting to pick up. But let's be honest, like hybrid events is where it's going to be, because there's a tremendous amount of cost savings. So we have to just get used to this idea that you're going to be networking and creating relationships online a lot, in person a bit, and it's going to be a hybrid.
No, I think you're so right. And I actually talked to someone the other day who didn't go to a conference, chose to go virtually, because she said, 5 years ago, I'd have killed myself to get there, take the red eye home to make my son's birthday. She said, and now I'm thinking I can get extra work done. I'm still at home in my remote office. I can still attend the conference. I can still plan the birthday, and all is great. And I'm not killing myself. I'm not grumpy because I'm traveling and, worried that I'm not going to get from point A to point B. I think there's a lot of value in virtual right now. I think people will start to alternate. I think they'll start sometimes to go face to face, and other times say, this year I'm just going to stay home. But I think it's again, back to choice and back to funding. And then also, particularly in the EdTech space, we are very, very good at product. We are not very good at selling ourselves with the product. We're great at selling the next widget, the next software. I mean, and I know you know this. When somebody says to us, put your personal brand on it, we want to see you out speaking about it. That's where the cliff just kind of cuts off. So talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you guys bring to the table for this, because I just see that's a really tough space, especially for our startups. A lot of people, even people who have retired from one business and are now starting up something else, they're okay with being on LinkedIn and connecting with you, maybe having a conversation. But the minute they need to get out front and do something, that's where they start to lose ground.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's so much to talk about this, right? First, I think it's important that we define why personal branding matters and what does it really mean, right? For whatever level, whether you're the person that's casually on social media, whatever, like first things first, the reason why we care about our personal brand is because people are making impressions of us in 5 seconds or less, even 2 seconds. And people buy from other people, people hire other people. So whether you acknowledge it or not, when I'm potentially going to do business with you, I'm going to go check out your business's website. I'm going to go check out the CEO, the founder, the team on LinkedIn first. Me personally, this is Rachel. I am an accomplished professional, MBA, entrepreneur, corporate marketer. Sure, other people might not have the same thing that they do in terms of their research, but a lot of people are doing what I just laid out, right? When they're checking people out. And the question is, how do you want to come off as for your own message, but also the message of the company you work for? Whether you created that company or you work for another company, you are a visible display of what that company stands for and what you stand for. So that's why it matters so much. Then, okay, well, what exactly is a personal brand? I keep hearing this term kind of a lot. What are you talking about, Rachel? Well, your personal brand is essentially how others see you, your reputation, the perceptions, the impressions, the context you give people, how you lead people. that is half of the story. The other half that is not talked about and not understood is how you see yourself. And so the how I see myself is the inside job. It's a journey to really uncover, why do I do what I do? What gives me purpose? Who is my audience? What are my skills? What am I passionate about? And that's the difference too between building a business brand, because when it's you, it's your experiences, it's your skills, it's your passions that are making that brand. When we talk about a business brand, that value proposition is really the business. It's the mission of that business, right? It's the business's product or service. It's their industry. But that's not all of me. I'm not the business.
Exactly.
Right. And we started this conversation, right? That it's about the people now more than ever before. It's about people and it's about relationships. So what I believe and what I'm seeing is that the personal brands are more important and foundational to sales, right? Revenue and sales and success than the business brand, especially for our startups. If you're Fortune 50, 100, 200 company with massive marketing spend, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of employees, the marketing can do a lot more of that message, right? But if you're a small business, you're a startup, 5, 10, you are it. You're it. You're the one doing the sales calls. You're the one going to the investors, right? You are it.
Exactly.
So, and we live in a social media world where 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it was you did call somebody blank, and they would pick up, but nobody's doing that now. Now they're going to look you up online, check out your profile and send you a message on there if they're interested and vice versa. That's it. People want to text before getting on a call. It's just, so that's why and what it is. And that's why it's so important. And then you can ask me okay, so how do I actually build a personal brand? If you want me to help answer that, that to me is, no matter what industry, why this is so important, because it's really about you, your legacy, the longevity of your career, and creating what you want to create based off of your vision for the world and for yourself.
And I think we see big movie stars that have presence. We see people like Steve Jobs, who had his own persona, good, bad, or indifferent. There are fans of him and non-fans of him, as you know. Same with Bill Gates, same with Mark Zuckerberg. And then there's their products that now have all become standalone products, but they didn't start out that way. They started out in garages. They started out in dorm rooms. They started out in places where exactly what you're talking about. They were just a couple of people. But I think the tech world often shows us the people that are really good at being out there. Jobs made a point of coming out on stage. He worked hard to have that image out there. Gates came out some of the time. Other times he relied on others in the company to do that. Zuckerberg didn't come out at all. He would do little couch video kinds of things, but he didn't put a lot of depth in that. I think now sometimes he may regret that a little bit, because as he's shifting the company focus, again, just what you're talking about, now there's a new brand that none of us are used to or comfortable with. And he doesn't have quite the brand there that's supporting it. Whereas when Jobs or Gates came out and said, now we're going to go this direction, we all kind of went, okay. And we went with them.
Because you know why? They're controlling the narrative. You want to control the narrative, which is why it's so important. You don't forget your personal brand. You don't focus so much on the business brand all the time that you forget yourself. Because if you don't control that narrative, somebody else will.
And that's often we see that, I think even more so with Hollywood stars, but suddenly they go from being top tier to being dropped. I think in education, we see it abruptly because educators tend not to be out in the spotlight. they are rarely out in front, and unless something goes wrong. And then they're catapulted to the front, and whatever little personal brand they did have is just cut out from under them. In academia, where there's a struggle is when you represent an institution for so many years, and then when you leave that, it's almost like starting over because your brand has been associated with their brand, and much like athletes, and suddenly you're a free agent, so to speak. And will your brand stand alone? You see successful people like Brene Brown who have managed to have both an academic career and be a very personal brand, vocal out there about humanistic things. But there are others that once they leave that institution, their byline is always former Yale professor or former.
Right.
That it's kind of what you get. So I think what you're talking about is really just spending the time to invest in yourself, maybe even more so than investing in your business at the get-go, so that you start to get that foundational establishment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Exactly. That's it. And as you were talking, I was thinking about just our brand is an evolution, just like any major brand, right? If you look at Nike when it first started, or Microsoft is such a great example, right? 40 plus years, who Microsoft was with Bill Gates and who it is today with Satya Nadella is just a very evolved brand. And just like business brands can evolve strategically, you get to evolve too. And there's always a thread. And so when I'm working with people and doing workshops and supporting people, a big piece of what we're trying to do is find the thread of who you are so that doesn't change. It's like who I am today. I might be coining myself, this brand marketing lady boss, and I've marketed myself in a way. I have a visual and there's a personality and people understand what I do. It's taken me a while to get there. My personality in terms of being a communicator and being creative and liking connecting with people, that's been with me since I was a kid. Those are innate qualities that I've had. And so often when I talk to people, it's the same for them, right? It's not like one day you were so good at math and then you decided to be this like creator. It was like, no, you're actually super analytical and you see things really with objectively. And now you're a creator and you use that same mentality in the creations, like the content that you're putting out there. There's always a thread. And the way that I help people figure that out for themselves is evaluating for key elements. So one, what are your skills? And when I say skills, I'm thinking about hard skills. These are your superpowers. There should only be like 3 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't want a huge list. If you don't know the answer, go to 10 people and be like, what do you think is my superpower? What would you come to me for? I don't want this to be like, I'm super empathetic or I'm super resilient. Beautiful. Love that. We need those soft skills. Absolutely. But in this sense, I want you to think about your skills as like the product features. It's like if you're writing the product, the features of that product, right? It's like, we have 10 gigs of da-da-da-da, and like, we're approved by the federal government, right? It's like, boom, boom, boom. That is what is your skills? Like, I would never say a core skill for me is like analytics. Don't love it. Not my strong suit. I've tried. I don't love it. Right. But I'm a great communicator. I'm great at writing. I'm great at speaking. Right. So what are your skills? Then 2, who is your audience? So you inherently, you said EdTech, you're a woman, you're inherently a certain age demo, you might have kids, like there's all these things that people specifically relate to your background and experience. So that's what I want you to think about. Who specifically can relate to your background and experience? So who are you talking to? Quite frankly, I wouldn't be talking to EdTech. However, I speak to EdTech marketers because that's one of my core audiences. I speak into entrepreneurs and founders. So I'm more agnostic industry, but more function, for instance.
Sure. And you don't limit yourself and
Right.
say, this is only the audience I'm going to work with.
Yeah. But we do know that the more targeted we are on our message, the more we can attract the right person. And that is whether you're building a personal brand or business brand, right? It's like, you can't be everything to everybody.
Absolutely.
So it has to be, you have to have a target audience. Then third, what's your differentiation? What makes you unique? What skills and experiences and background do you have that gives you credibility and makes people trust you? So things that might differentiate you could be that you do have an MBA like me. You have a master's. You are a teacher at universities. It could be you speak 5 languages. It could be that you're certified in Google Analytics. You're certified, what all these different things, right? What makes you different so that people believe you, right? Because there's a lot of people that can say that they're a brand marketing lady boss, for instance.
Right.
But not as many people can say that they worked for Microsoft, they have their MBA, that they own their own business now, right? Like I start to have my differentiation. I use that in my messaging a lot. And then lastly, what's your passion? What are you passionate about? What gives you energy and excitement? That is what creates our personal brand that actually draws people in and makes you authentic, right? Because people talk a lot about authenticity these days. True authenticity comes out when you're actually passionate about what the heck you're doing and talking about. So those elements will help you think through what your personal brand is, and then you can develop your a personal brand value proposition. Who do you help? What do you do? And what outcome are you driving? And that's some of the work that we do when we're training people and we put people through our program. So I hope that people will find that helpful.
And for our listeners, particularly, I hate to pick on startups and entrepreneurs, but I'm going to. This is really something you need to look at because you've already got a defined niche. You came up with a product or a service or something that you feel like you have the best one, or you have the only one, or no one else has thought to do this. You have the passion. That's why you're doing this. That's why you're staying up all night working on something. That's why you've given up your job so you can, spend more time on it. That's why you and, 3 people have gotten together to build this product. I talk to entrepreneurs and startups all the time that their whole family is getting involved. My mom is keeping the books, and my dad is, going to conferences and talking about us. It's a family affair to put out the next greatest widget. You've already got 2 of the 4 done right then and there. And so now is the opportunity to hone in and to take advantage of using what is really this professional lens looking at you, because all of us are our own worst enemies. And I know you know this when you work with people. It's not that we don't know the answers to those 4 questions. We can tell you our best friend, our spouse, somebody else we know, we can name off those 4 things about them right off the top of our head. We can't do it for ourselves. We're not very good at looking inwards and saying, here's who we are, here's what we stand for, here's what people think of me. And so hiring someone and having that professional lens can polish you so very quickly and give you such a great boost in going out to do that pitch deck, going out to talk to potential investors, even just doing your TikTok and YouTube videos, just showing that excitement that you have about your product, but really pushing that forward and then having that brand that's attached to that. Tell us a little bit about some of the services and products that you offer, because I think this is really an area that people, if they're not investing in themselves yet, they need to be doing it, even when money is tight at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're just so right? Like this foundational work that we're talking about really does lay the foundation for that pitch deck, for those conversations with whoever, because when we go into those conversations and we just talk about what we do, hey, I do LinkedIn marketing, whatever, nobody cares. There's a bunch of people, right, that do the same thing. But when you do the storytelling and you hey, I'm actually a brand marketing lady boss. I've been doing this for over a decade because I care so much about people that's a very different opening, right, to a conversation, that quick pitch, the 60 seconds you might get, than to go through like, hey, I have this product and we do this. It's just boring. So that's what this work is, right? And it's not just about it helps you in selling your business, whatever that product is, but it helps you sell the business, a human, which that's what people buy from. That's what people buy from. Like, so all of our information's on standoutauthority.com. When you go on there, there's 7 tips to help you create content that you can download. So also you can see our services. Basically, we either work with individuals one-on-one. With our agency, that's an application. Those are high-powered executives. And then we also do training. And so we are going to be bringing in a new cohort into a training program in early 2023, which is really exciting and particularly helpful for people that might not have a full investment, right, to do the work one-on-one with us, but really get support and help in doing the work to define who you are, get attention, and get those micro commitments from people that draw in opportunities and advocates. That's what we're helping people build is to be a standout authority. So all the information on standoutauthority.com. And then, of course, connect with me on LinkedIn across all my platforms. I'm the Rachel B. Lee, and there's nothing better than getting a personalized invitation that says, hey, I saw you, I heard you chatting with Cher and I learned this. I mean, there's just nothing better than those messages, right? And that's the beginning.
Absolutely.
That's how we begin relationships that turn into opportunities.
Absolutely. No, and we'll make sure and include all of your information. So wherever you're listening to your podcast, everything will be there. It will also be on our site. But this has been such an exciting conversation because I think this is the area we gloss over. This is the area we always skip. And for me, I think it's just so important that people are investing in themselves because, the piece that we don't ever talk about also is the failure rate in startups and entrepreneurs. And it's unfortunate, but we also learn from failure and we start again. That's the beauty of doing it. But sometimes you fail for the wrong reason. It's not because your product isn't great. It's not because it wouldn't make a difference. It's because you haven't figured out how to present it and you haven't figured out how to present yourself. And so I think you're also an investment in having success in that launch because you can't sell something when you're not ready to do it. And people recognize very, very quickly, as you said, if there's a lack of confidence, I can't sell you something if it looks like I'm nervous about using it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Buy my pressure
be confident.
Cooker, but don't. Yeah. Yeah. You need that. And so this investment isn't only for yourself, but think about investing in your business and think about when you're talking to investors and saying, look at the work I've done. Look at what I've brought on board. Even if you just need to do some startups here. But anytime that you can invest fully and work with Rachel and her husband, I mean, this is ideal for you. And the idea of a cohort coming in the spring, now's the perfect time to start saving up for that and getting ready and getting into that. So is there a deadline for registering for that?
Coming soon.
Okay.
So if someone is interested, we're working on our dates right now and getting everything together. So if somebody is interested, send me that message. We're going to have more information out very soon, but it will be at the beginning of 2023 that it launches. Well,
Excellent.
The signups will be
folks,
sooner, but the program will actually be active. It'll be an 8-week program.
Wonderful. So listeners, make sure that you're getting signed up with her on LinkedIn. Make sure that you're checking out their website and all the information, and then be sure and drop her a message and say, hey, don't forget me. Send me an invite as soon as it's ready, because I think this is really pertinent. And also for our C-suite members. We do get C-suite EdTech folks who are transitioning, who are looking to leave where they've been at for a while and off to do new things. And there's always some reinvestment in yourself when you decide to go in a different path. So, Rachel, this has been wonderful. I'm excited to have you on today. Thankful to finally have you on. For our listeners, we've been hit and miss now for a few weeks. Rachel and I probably have the 2 worst calendars.
Pretty much, but we did it. That's all that matters.
We did it. Yay. Yay. So thanks again for being on here. Listeners, thank you as always for joining us. Make sure you check out with us on wherever you pick up your podcast, Spotify, Apple, Audible, and then also be sure to look at their website and get started. So until we talk to you again, keep learning.
Thank you for listening to EdTech Speaks with EdTech strategist Cher Downing. To learn more about the services Downing EdTech and its staff can provide you, find us at www.downingedtech.com. If you enjoyed today's podcast, be sure to share it. We'd also like to hear from you regarding any suggestions for topics or guests and the value you received from our show. Check back for new podcasts with featured guests at www.downingedtech.com/podcast.